Cool.
Okay. I love how it's either leave meeting or got it. There we go.
Yeah, like whatever. Hopefully I'll keep an eye on the time because I don't have pro, but that's fine.
Oh yeah, I
Um,
need to get that
so I'll
too.
have to kick out or whatever, but that's fine. So Ajli, did I say that right?
Ashley.
Ajle. Okay.
Yes.
So hi everyone. I'm here talking with Kirthan Ajle, a Toronto-based death doula and grief educator, an amazing person to talk to. We've been talking, and I'm just gonna ask Kirthan to repeat what she just said. But yeah, so welcome. I hope you enjoy this conversation about life and death and everything in between. So, Kirthan, you just said something that I thought you were talking a little bit about what got you interested in your work now and about death and thinking about it as a child. And you can repeat all the story you shared or just the thought of that you can say whatever you want to say, but I'm interested for people to know like where your interest came from.
Yeah, so, started at a fairly young age, and then as I got older, um, and just I think it was influenced a lot by television shows, again, like 6 Feet Under, Dead Like Me, Law and Order, which when I think about it now, every single episode has features a death, a person dying in a particular way.
Mm.
Um, and so slowly realizing that there are so many different ways we can leave this planet. Um, but more so questioning why we know that someday we will die. We know that someday our loved ones will die. Death is a fact of life, basically any, not just human life, but pets, animals.
Yeah.
Um, and why it is that we have such a visceral negative reaction to simply acknowledging that fact,
Mm.
not saying I want you to die, I hope you die,
Mm.
or I look forward to the day that you die, but simply acknowledging, hey, someday you're going to die.
Mm.
And why, when we know that it's a guarantee in life, we know that it's going to happen, we know that no one escapes death. um yeah, why we as a culture are so deeply uncomfortable with that.
Mm. I think that's really insightful, and I think that like I completely agree. And as I was telling you before, my dad passed away, and it's sort of that grief because we found his body on the couch, and so it was he was taking a nap, so he passed away in his sleep. You know, kind of the best way you can go, but not ideal. He was 42, quite a young man and
Yeah.
very young. And I was 12. And it was a horrible day, worst day of my life, my mom's life, my sister's life. Like that was a horrible, traumatic experience that we shared. And when I was at university, having a malpractice lawsuit around his treatment settle really re-triggered a lot of that trauma. And I was at an age where all my peers were going out and drinking and you know being stupid and talking about dating, and I'm like, I have zero interest. We're all gonna die. Why is what? Nobody cares. This doesn't matter. This is all made up. And it just
Yeah.
like I found myself really incapable of small talk. I just had no patience for it. I had no interest in it. And just like you say, just people, it's almost like you're afraid. People are afraid that if you mention it, it almost feels like it's inviting it in to your life
Yeah.
in a way.
Yeah.
And almost like it's like a hex or a curse or like
Yes.
just, you know, you're like,
Like you're inviting some evil presence in, and like if we talk about death, it's going to come for us.
right. And like almost like that you're wishing that upon yourself or
Yeah.
someone else. And it's just
Yeah.
like, Um, and I find that really interesting. And I think, and just to things I've read on your website and in our written interview about like the more you kind of engaged with death and confronting mortality and thinking about these larger questions about life, it's sort of brought forth for you kind of values that maybe weren't always going with capitalism in the way our modern society is kind of going, especially in North America, where we are both from. And
Yeah.
and I think I was just really interested. in talking to you, because I follow you on Instagram, and I've been, following your work, and I think your work is really interesting, and I'm really glad that you exist and that you're doing this work, and I don't know if stigma is the right word, but afraiding people, exposure therapy,
I hope.
yeah. And I'm just like, thank you. Gosh, I think about this all the time, and I'm glad it's not just me. And I think it is worth talking about more. And and I made my show Pieces of Us kind of very much in that vein, that it feels like being able to recognize the concept of loss and that change, even if you look at death as loss or change, like capitalism to me, and I have no problem with a person who wants to make money, the free market, or that's not what I'm talking about. I'm talking about the value of like pushing individual interest at, regardless of what that costs other people, like a
Yeah,
doctor who's medically negligent, for example, or
yeah,
like that kind of, that promise of endless abundance, that guarantee that we will
yes,
always have more, and you are entitled to always have more. And for me, I mean, if we think about climate change, this is a whole other conversation. We don't live sustainably because we subscribe to a value system, and this, almost this lie we're telling ourselves, maybe not a lie, maybe sounds harsh, but this story that we're telling ourselves that there will always be more. And
yeah.
not only is that not true, but like, is that such a bad thing? I feel like that
Mhm.
makes me appreciate things more. I don't know. I'm just really
Yes.
interested in your thoughts on that. And yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I would call it a lie. I think we've been fed a lie. I think, especially when you look at capitalism, I'm not saying that our previous systems were, but like
Mm,
not saying let's go back to feudalism. But
yeah.
um, but I think definitely this idea that there are infinite resources and we can just mine and mine and there will always be more, and yeah, that idea of like constant abundance,
Mm,
especially in regards to capitalism. It's so interesting to me how certain companies will be considered failures because they don't have constant growth. Instead of just, hey, our sales are steady, we're going along. It's no, under the capitalist mindset, that's failure.
mm,
And yeah, just as like we're finding in real time that the earth is not an infinite resource,
mm,
that yeah, eventually you can only raise so many trees and eventually there's nothing left.
mm.
And unfortunately, I mean, that I try, it's a weird thing of, oh, I don't want to think about it too. Well, we have to think about it.
Yeah.
um because yeah, look at what's happening with the rainforest. You see the extreme climate change events.
Mm,
All, I mean, here in Canada we had awful smoke, like for in Ontario for the first time in my life. I had like the smoke from the wildfires. I'm having to close my windows in July
mm,
and wear a mask outside, like
mm,
outside when normally I wouldn't mask outside.
mm.
And I'm buying myself HEPA filters so that I can breathe more easily. So,
Yeah.
and it's just, yeah, it's also this idea of like, why should we always have abundance? There's no, I think, I hope I'm not going on too much of a tangent, but like with my practice, it's also heavily influenced by my interest in witchcraft, or my witchcraft
Mm,
practice.
mm,
Um, because I feel like most people who practice witchcraft, you have a connection to nature. And I
yeah.
mean, I live downtown Toronto, surrounded by concrete, but there are a lot of trees here. Um, but I think learning to connect with the cycles of nature and understand that, like right now in Canada, we are going into the dark part of the year.
Mm,
So things are, the leaves are falling and everything's dying. But we know that in spring it'll bloom again.
mm,
Whereas capitalism tells us that it should always be blooming 24/7, no rest, go, 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 go.
mm,
Instead of honoring our natural whether it's earth or humans, but that natural need to sometimes, you know,
Yeah.
shut down a bit, close,
Mm,
rest,
mm,
this 24/7 grind mindset, I think is so
mhm.
toxic.
Me
And
too.
the idea that also, again, like the lies capitalism tells us that, well, if you're struggling financially, it's because you're just not working hard enough.
It's
Not
your
that,
fault.
oh, all these systems are stacked against you.
Mm,
And, we've seen during the pandemic how the rich got so much richer and
mm,
the rest of us have been struggling even more.
yeah.
Um, but yeah, that idea that it's always, everything should always be blooming, everything should always be abundance, there's always more,
Mm,
no rest, no
mm,
considering the resources, no like what happens when we're done mining this area, like, and just move on to, oh wait, that area's already been mined. Okay, let's go to another, like,
mm,
instead of thinking, like the earth is one planet
mhm.
and there's only so much space.
Yeah.
So I mean, I often wonder, I thought, where do these people think they're going to keep getting resources from?
Yeah.
Once it's done, it's
Yeah,
done.
it's done. I have like in my darker conspiracy theory moments, I'm like, all the rich billionaires are building rockets and they're gonna leave, and we're all gonna be left here
That's
with this dying planet, and it sucks because I like this planet.
yeah.
I'm like,
And
I
I
like
mean,
it here.
I don't want to get started on like Bezos and Musk, but the idea
Yeah.
that for a billionaire to me to look at Mars
Mm,
and think, I'm going to figure out a way to colonize Mars, as opposed to, I'm like the richest man in the world. I can use my money to make things better here on Earth now. Again, like
yeah.
what's I just the mindset it like
Yeah.
blows my brain to smithereens. I can barely get the sentence out.
Me too. Yeah, the logic, it just doesn't make sense to me. And just like exactly what you said, I find that so interesting. Like, because I do like as a trained performer, I found, especially in terms of mental health, I discovered a lot about like the voice and things with the nervous system, and a lot of
Mm,
practices that I do now as a person who has PTSD.
uh,
I learned a lot about like you have to learn how to regulate or rewire your nervous system on top of like clinical care you can do and like talking therapy or medication, et cetera, et cetera. But there are also body practices that you can do that people don't really talk about as much because pharmaceutical companies can't make a lot of money on them. And but also that those practices specifically require time for you to integrate information in your nervous system, and like that's what sleep is. You need your subconscious in your body, like that's what autumn is. Like they're integrating
mm,
nutrients and the sunlight,
yeah,
and that rest is required. And just like you said with these businesses who are like, if you're not constantly upwards, it's like, well, what if your profits went down because were investing tons of money into incredible
yeah,
renewable energy, and then pooh, there it goes, like why is
yeah,
the fluctuations as they happen in life naturally, they're just not allowed or they're not okay, and I just don't get it.
yeah. Like I'm just thinking, I'd have to look into this, but I believe the company Instapot,
Mhm.
which I don't know if you know, like Instapots,
The
oh,
name
it's the
sounds
thing is
familiar.
like a crock pot, but instead of slow cooking, it like cooked everything really fast.
Oh.
And yeah, and my mom bought one, never used it. I never used one, but a lot of people I know had it. And they're like, "Oh my God, this is the best thing ever." Um, and yeah, then the company was considered to not be doing well because people would buy their Instapot, and then that was it because it's good. It's a good product. It's not breaking down. Why do they have to buy another one?
Hmm.
So this idea of
Exactly.
like, oh, so many people bought our product, but now no one new is buying the product. So it's a fail. And it's just like, what?
Hmm. Well, and then that even makes companies like tech companies or companies like with
Oh
electric,
yeah.
the planned obsolescence, and they make
Yeah.
things
Oh, I hate it.
specifically so they don't last. So you need to buy more so they can, and you're like,
Yeah.
okay, sure. I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't know.
And
And
then
so,
again, and where is all our old tech go? Like, are there recycling programs? Where are all these
mm,
precious metals going? Like, it's
mm,
just there's
mm,
so much I think planned and like purposely planned waste.
mhm.
And that just, oh, it upsets me
Yeah,
a
me
whole lot.
too. Me too. And I find myself kind of, I become not, I'm not a productive member of society when I just walk around feeling frustrated all the time looking at all this stuff. You know what I mean?
Mhm.
It really pisses me off. I feel like I want to get into our questions now.
Yeah,
Let's see, where did they go? I had them open, but I also just realized I only have 7 minutes left on this call, which is so
I
dumb.
saw. Yeah, should we
So we
start
can
another one or how do
we
we?
can we can literally just start the same one. So you should be able to click
Okay.
on the link. If anything happens, we can just email and then we'll start it again. But let me just quickly, we'll get started in the questions in a moment. How do I stop? There it is. Here we go.